Hey, hey, hey. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad y'all are here. I don't know if I've ever just actually said thank you. Thank you to each of you who take time to hear what the heck I might have to say, because I think I'm still astonished and shocked that anybody even cares. And I mean that with deep sincerity. I want to publicly apologize to someone who I would have called a friend when we were in high school. My friend Cedric. I don't know, it feels like 5 years ago, we had a high school reunion. And Cedric came to me at the picnic and said, or at the cookout, and said, Nicole, one day, in class, you just smacked me in the back of the head. And he went on to describe a few other things. And honestly, I don't recall, um, and I have no idea what my intentions even were. Um, but I'm sorry. I it pains me to know that I am the source of persistent pain in people's lives. That 25 years later, that someone is thinking about something that I did in a negative way. So I want to just apologize to Cedric here in front of thousands, hundreds, dozens, a couple of my closest friends for just being a horrible human. This week, I had an opportunity to talk to Mentor Dial, and he is a global empathy authority. And I was sharing with him that sometimes this empathy work can be a little overwhelming. And he asked me to describe what I meant by that. And I said, well, you know, before, like when I was doing race, equity, or diversity and inclusion work, or any of the stuff that people call kind of hard, I don't know that I ever felt overwhelmed by it. But I think it was because I had the uncanny ability to just kind of let stuff pass through me. You like it comes to me and then passes through, and then I was back on to logic and reasonable and objective and what could I control. Um, but as I've been on this empathy journey and not having really good boundaries, one of the things that I said was, it feels like some days, if I've got the words, tell me about your problems, kind of plastered across my head, or even the words, tell me what you think of me, plastered across my head. And I gotta tell you, I don't know that I've ever not cared what people think. I know there are lots of people who are like, I don't give a crap what nobody thinks. That is not me. That has never been me. I care way too deeply about what people think, child. But even though I care too deeply about what other people think, I have legitimately been able to go, what can I do about it? If nothing, let me focus my energy. And as I've been kind of really trying to put myself in the shoes of other people, I have, anyway, don't have great boundaries around that. And one of the things that I started to notice was these people coming to me to let me know what they think of me, what they think of my work. And one of the first things I did was think about, oh my gosh, what are all the times that I've done that for other people? Because I know, child, I'm good for calling the pastor and being like, hey, look, this is what I think about what you said, what you did. And you be careful about your influence over people. And so Mentor said, Nicole, there's a word that we use in a term we use in French, and it's called c'est dans les yeux. It's in the eyes. And he said, so there's something about your eyes now that says that you welcome the information. And I'm like, okay, cool. But in addition to that, we need some boundaries. So one of my newest friends gave me this book. It's called Trauma Stewardship: An Everyday Guide to Caring for Self While Caring for Others. And interestingly enough, when I share it with people who have done extensive amounts of work around trauma, who already know a lot about trauma, they're like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then they start giving me the academic trauma responses. But, when I learn something new, I like to share with other people. And so one of the ways that well, there's 16 ways. I'm not going to read all of them, but there's a few ways that that you are experiencing secondary trauma. So the thing didn't happen to you, but you are being impacted by it. One is feeling helpless or hopeless, that, there ain't nothing that you can really do as a single person to fix the issue. Adjacent to that is the sense that you can never do enough. So you're working really, really hard, um, laboring uh, long and tough. In Jewish communities, people feel like, if sometimes, I'm speaking in sweeping generalizations, if they learn enough, then maybe they can figure something out. Another one is hypervigilance, meaning, like, if, let's say, you got robbed once, and now every time you go out, you thinking about how you can protect yourself against being robbed. That's hypervigilance. I told y'all before that I've been married a few times, and one of the first pages in this book is when somebody tell you they're getting married, and the first thing you feel is pity. You probably have secondary trauma. So it was like, okay, let me pick this up. I moved it up. I got like 16 books in front of this, and I moved this one up because I was like, okay, let me find out what I got going on here. Um, Another one that I thought was interesting, and that I want to talk about today, um, is minimizing. So you have this one extreme event or an extreme situation, and then you start to minimize everything else. So let's say um, your child was murdered. And so, horrible, horrible situation. But then if somebody else's child is treated poorly in school, then what you say to them is, at least your child wasn't murdered, that kind of thing. Um, you got a severe chronic illness. And so what you do, or someone with a severe chronic illness. And so when somebody has pneumonia or strep, you're like, well, at least you ain't got, whatever that chronic debilitating illness is. A couple others I want to just like mention are like chronic ailments. Like if you sick all the time, you probably have some secondary trauma thing going on. Um, the inability to listen or to deliberate is another one that that another way to know that you're dealing with this secondary trauma. Um, a sense that you're being punished. I remember when I first got on this empathy journey, I said, I feel like Jonah, and God is telling me to go to Nineveh and I don't want to go. And so I'm being forced to go and I don't want to. I want to go to Tarshish. And I've said that over and over and over again. So that sense of persecution. Another one is guilt, feeling really bad about doing basic things. Like, let's say you go to a fancy restaurant after you just found out that some people are dealing with food apartheid, and you feel that anger and cynicism. I know you all have been able to watch that and observe that in me a couple of times. And then another one I want to talk about today is the inability to empathize or numbing. So things happen so many times that you just become used to it. There was another school shooting yesterday, and I don't even know what number we're at, but I forced myself to sit with it, and because this is not what should be. And we do not have to embrace this new reality. We don't have to accept it. This is not, I'm going to say, not normal. Now, maybe it is normal for us here in the United States, but it is not normal. And when you hear about people being released from prison who've been in jail for a really long time and treated unfairly, 30, 20, 30, 40 years, and then they finally get out because of the work of the Midwest Innocence Project or something like that. Over time, I think you can stop being astonished by it. And I remember one time when Toni Morrison said in an interview, she said, I will always be shocked. And I remember going, what? Wait, huh? Because you can hardly tell me anything about exclusionary practices inside schools and shock me anymore, because I've heard it so much. And it's not that I don't empathize. But I have become desensitized a little bit to just say, of course, that's what's happened if you have a leader who is not invested in the communities that they are serving. Um, and so what I really sparked me to decide to talk about what's in the eyes today is I saw a video of Candace Owens being really, really put out because an underwear company did an ad and the woman was in a wheelchair in her underwear. And they were basically being inclusive of people who the way that they're mobile is because they use wheelchairs. And she was just like, I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, how far are we going to go with this inclusivity thing? And Candace Owens has a lot of harsh beliefs about race and racism, which is fascinating because the NAACP came to her defense when she was in school and being discriminated against. But today she would say that there's no racial disparities. It's just kind of fascinating how people are able to do that. And I don't understand it. But what I do think is important to talk about is when we think people are going too far, what does it look like to put ourselves in their shoes and try to walk around in it a little bit? You know, like it had never even occurred to me that no one had ever done an ad about underwear for people who are in wheelchairs. And what does it hurt me that an ad agency is putting together an ad with a woman in a wheelchair in her underwear? Clearly, if you take a logical, reasonable position, she is gotta wear underwear somehow. Somebody got to sell underwear to these people. And I think the thing that we don't get easy enough to me is that if I just put back on my engineering hat, is that there's a ton of money to be made in this capitalistic society if you decide that you're going to be inclusive of everybody. If you just look at Rihanna, the woman's a singer. She wasn't even close to $1 billion until she said, you know what, I'm gonna do this makeup thing. And I'm gonna do this underwear thing, and I'm gonna let the lightest of the lightest of the lightest people have a makeup foundation in their color. And the darkest of the darkest of the darkest people, I'm gonna have makeup in their color. And for my lingerie, I'm gonna have men looking sexy. I'm gonna have heavy people looking sexy. I'm gonna have there's a woman, she ain't got no arm looking sexy. There's people with stretch marks and double bellies and all kinds of things. Everybody got to wear underwear. Everybody got somebody who love them. Most people want to do something for their face sometime. And because Rihanna understands that, she made $1 billion. And while controversy sells and it looks like exclusionary practices sell, I would invite you like to just do this one little thing for me this week. Just this one little thing. I want us to pay attention to when we won't look someone in the face, when you won't look at them in the eyes. Because what I've learned is before I took a more empathetic stance, that was my method. I ain't looking at you because if I look at you, I got to see you. And when I see you, then I have to deal with the very real human emotion of you, of you. Now I got to just be honest and say, some of it I hate. I haven't built my capacity to deal in this way very well just yet. Some of it I hate. I People call me and they say things that I just believe the form of the call. There ain't no way they would have said it to, because I would have, honey, walk over, limp back. That's all I got to say. But this empathy journey that people think is soft and a soft skill and that it's weak and that we don't need it and that it's not going to help us get to where we want to go, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It is the hardest thing I have ever done to just really go. When Cedric comes to me as a grown man, we are almost 50, and says, you hurt my feelings when we were 13. Mm, it makes my heart break today. And the reason it makes my heart break is because I can look him in his eyes and see the pain that he is feeling. And now it helps me make better decisions. The best decisions it helps me to make is to understand that when a child is doing something that is harmful and hurtful to another child, that somebody gave me an opportunity to make it right. They didn't put me out. They didn't send me to the office. Well, I did end up in ISS and OSS a couple of times. But by and large, my educators cared about me. And when I was acting up towards Cedric or anybody else, they leaned in to patience and said, what happened to her, not what is wrong with her. So, my loves, I am not trying to get anybody to agree with Candace Owens. But listen to me closely, my dears. I do want you to empathize with her, and here's what I mean. What happened to a person who gets upset, disappointed, enraged because somebody decides that they're going to make opportunity and access for someone in a wheelchair? What happened to you? And if we spend time thinking about what happened to someone, then maybe we can adjust our dealings with them. You see this? Yeah, I can't believe you. And why don't you? Clearly, that ain't working. It's not working. And it's not working because we don't understand the pathology. We don't understand her ACEs score, whatever it is. We don't understand how hurt she must be. Because when you see it as what it is, I think sometimes hurt looks like hate. Because I can tell you with everything in me, I ain't never hate Cedric. I ain't never hate Cedric. I don't know what was happening to me at that time in my life. I have no idea. I don't remember. But now that he told me, now that I know, I can do better. And that's all I ask from each of you. When we think that the person along who lives next door to us, who has done some of the most horrific things, when we call him a monster, then you believe that these things are not as pervasive as they are. You see, when it was one person shooting up a school, maybe it was a monster. But now that we've got hundreds of people shooting up schools, honey, we got to get to the heart of the matter. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got plenty of work to do.